The bicycle chain squeaked so loud, 3 gardeners dropped their hedge trimmers. Ryler Rowland, CEO of Rowland Enterprises, owner of 17 properties across North America and the most eligible bachelor in all of Chicago, pedaled down his own driveway on a rusty bicycle that looked like it belonged in a museum. His great-grandfather had bought this bicycle in 1952. It had survived 2 world wars, a house fire, and 70 years of sitting in the family storage shed. Today, it would survive something far more dangerous: a blind date. "Sir, sir!" Damon Chase, Ryler's personal assistant, sprinted across the manicured lawn in his $3,000 Italian suit, waving his arms like a man trying to stop a plane from taking off. "Mr. Rowland, please, I'm begging you. At least take the Tesla." Ryler kept pedaling. His security team stood frozen at their posts, mouths hanging open. The head of security, a massive man named Bishop, had looked like he'd just witnessed a crime. Because in a way, he had. Ryler Rowland, the man who wore custom Brioni suits, the man who owned a fleet of luxury vehicles that could make a Saudi prince jealous, the man whose face had graced the cover of Forbes 3 times, was wearing a faded flannel shirt with a hole near the collar, jeans that had seen better days, and work boots so scuffed they looked like they'd been through a construction site. His normally perfectly groomed fade was hidden under an old baseball cap. His signature 5 o'clock shadow was now a full, slightly unkempt beard he'd been growing for 2 weeks specifically for this moment. He looked like a handyman. A broke handyman. And that was exactly the point. "Damon." Ryler finally stopped the bicycle at the edge of the gate. He turned to face his assistant, and even in these raggedy clothes, the man was still devastatingly handsome. 6'3", a dark brown skin smooth and glowing, shoulders broad enough to fill a doorway, and gray eyes so intense they could make a boardroom full of executives sweat. "Sir, please." Damon caught up, slightly out of breath. "This is insane. You're worth $3 billion. You can't just—" "That's exactly the problem, Damon." Ryler's voice was deep, smooth. The kind of voice that made women lose their train of thought mid-sentence. "So every woman I've dated in the last 5 years has known exactly who I am before they even met me. They've Googled my net worth before our appetizers arrived. They've calculated how much alimony they'd get before dessert." Damon opened his mouth to protest, but Ryler raised a hand. "Last month, Christina literally asked my accountant for a copy of my financial portfolio on our second date." Damon winced. "Okay, that was admittedly bad." "Bad?" "She sent me a PowerPoint presentation on why she'd make an excellent Mrs. Rowland. It had projected earnings from my company growth and estimated inheritance timelines." "Sir?" "She calculated when she thought my grandmother would die, Damon. She had a pie chart." Damon fell silent. Ryler gripped the rusty handlebars of his great-grandfather's bicycle. "I'm tired of being a walking ATM. I want someone who sees me, not my money, not my properties, not my stock portfolio. I'm me." He looked down at his worn clothes. "This is the test. If this woman can look at a man who appears to have nothing and still treat him with kindness, still show genuine interest in who he is as a person." He paused. "Then maybe she's worth knowing." Damon sighed, defeated. "And if she doesn't pass the test? Then I'll know exactly what kind of woman she is." Ryler started pedaling again. "Don't wait up. At least let Bishop follow you in a—" But Ryler was already gone, eyed the squeaky bicycle disappearing down the tree-lined street of his exclusive neighborhood, past mansions worth more than some small country's GDP. Damon watched him go, then pulled out his phone and called Bishop. "Follow him, from a distance. If anything happens to that man, we're all unemployed." Now, while Ryler was pedaling toward his fate, let me take you to the other side of Chicago, to a woman who had no idea her life was about to change forever. But Lincoln Square wasn't the richest neighborhood in Chicago. It wasn't the poorest either. It sat somewhere in the middle, a place where working-class families lived in modest homes, where corner stores still knew their customers by name, and where a woman could sell fish cakes on the street and make just enough to survive. That woman was Sophia Dennings, and right now she was having a terrible day. "Sophia, please. I'm begging you." Nellie Vance clutched Sophia's arm with perfectly manicured nails, nails that Sophia knew had cost more than her grocery budget for the week. Sophia looked at her childhood friend, and felt that familiar mixture of love and exhaustion that always came with Nellie. Nellie was gorgeous. There was no denying it. Light brown skin that seemed to glow, curves that stopped traffic, and a face that could have launched 1,000 Instagram sponsorships. Today, she was dressed to kill. A form-fitting red dress that hugged every inch of her figure, heels high enough to give Sophia vertigo just looking at them, and makeup so flawless it probably took 2 hours to apply. Sophia, on the other hand, was wearing an apron stained with fish cake batter, a simple white t-shirt, jeans, and sneakers that were starting to separate at the sole. Her natural hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and the only makeup on her face was the sheen of sweat from standing over a hot cart all morning. But here's the thing about Sophia Dennings. She didn't need makeup to be beautiful. At 5'6", with skin the color of warm honey, features soft and kind, and curves that her modest clothes couldn't quite hide, Sophia had the kind of beauty that crept up on you. The kind that didn't scream for attention but whispered, and once you noticed, you couldn't look away. And her eyes were her most striking feature. Large, expressive, the deep brown of coffee beans. They held warmth, intelligence, and just a hint of sadness that came from carrying too much weight for too long. Nellie, I can't. Sophia gestured at her cart, where golden fish cakes sizzled on the griddle. I have to make at least another $100 today. Mama's checkup is tomorrow, and you know how expensive her medication is. Nellie groaned dramatically. Sophie, this is important. This guy I'm meeting, his profile says he's loaded. Like, seriously loaded. Private jets, multiple businesses, the whole package. And what does a loaded guy want with someone on a dating app? Sophia asked skeptically, flipping a fish cake with practiced ease. Maybe he's looking for love, just like everyone else. Nellie examined her nails. Or maybe he's looking for something else, and I'm perfectly happy to provide it. For the right price. Nellie. Don't start with me, Sophia. We've been over this 1,000 times. They had. Since they were 16 years old, best friends who grew up on the same block, Sophia had watched Nellie evolve from a sweet, hopeful girl into a woman who viewed wealthy men as walking opportunities. Sophia didn't approve, but she also understood. They'd grown up poor. They'd seen their mothers struggle. Nellie had decided early on that she would never struggle the same way. She'd just chosen a different path than Sophia to avoid it. No, look. Nellie softened her voice. I'm meeting a complete stranger. What if he's a serial killer? What if he's crazy? I need backup. That's all I'm asking. Just sit at a table nearby, make sure I'm safe. If he tries anything, you can call the police. And my cart? 30 minutes, 1 hour tops. I'll even help you sell when we get back. Sophia snorted. You? Selling fish cakes? In those heels? I'll supervise. Nellie grinned. Come on, Sophie, please. I'll pay you back. Sophia looked at her card, then at Nellie, then at the measly $37 in her tip jar that was supposed to cover medication that cost $400. If you were Sophia, would you go with Nellie to watch her back, even though you don't agree with her lifestyle? Drop a comment below. I want to know what you would do. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button because what happens next? Nobody could have predicted it. 1 hour, Sophia said firmly. Oh, and you're buying my lunch. Deal, Nellie squealed, hugging her tight. You're the best friend ever. Now let's go get me a rich husband. The restaurant Nellie had chosen was in River North, a neighborhood known for trendy restaurants and deep pockets. It was a 30-minute bus ride from Lincoln Square, and Sophia felt more out of place with every block they traveled. She looked down at her clothes, still wearing her work clothes minus the apron. She'd tried to clean up in a gas station bathroom, but there was only so much she could do. Stop fidgeting, Nellie said, applying lip gloss using her phone as a mirror. You're not the one meeting him. Just sit nearby and look, I don't know, like you belong. In a restaurant where the cheapest appetizer probably costs more than my entire outfit? Just order water. They can't charge you for water. Famous last words. When they arrived at the restaurant, a sleek, modern establishment with floor-to-ceiling windows and waiters in crisp white shirts, Sophia's stomach dropped. This place screamed money. The kind of money that would take one look at Sophia Dennings and politely suggest she try the McDonald's around the corner. Nellie, however, strutted in like she owned the place. Her confidence was almost admirable. Almost. "Reservation for two," Nellie announced to the hostess. "Under the name, actually, it's under his name. Bryant? He said he made the reservation." The hostess checked her tablet. "Mr. Bryant's table is ready. Right this way." They were led to a beautiful corner table with a view of the Chicago River. The afternoon sun sparkled on the water, and Sophia had to admit, it was romantic. "Okay, that's his table," Nellie pointed. "You sit there." She gestured to a small table about 15 feet away. Close enough to see, far enough not to interfere. Sophia sat. A waiter appeared immediately. "Good afternoon. Aye, ma'am. Can I start you with something to drink?" "Just water, please." The waiter's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course. Are artisanal still water or sparkling?" Tap?" The smile vanished entirely. "We don't serve tap water, ma'am. Our still water is imported from Iceland. $16. $16 for water." Sophia forced a smile. "Still water is fine." As the waiter walked away, Sophia wanted to sink into the floor. $16. For water. She could buy 3 meals with that money. She was about to text Nellie that this was insane, that she was leaving, when the front door opened. And everything changed. The man who walked in didn't look like he belonged here. His clothes were wrinkled and faded. His boots were scuffed. He wore a baseball cap that had seen better days, and a beard that looked like it hadn't seen a comb for a week. But the way he moved was different. There was confidence in his stride, our power in his shoulders, like he knew exactly where he was going and nothing in the world could stop him. Sophia found herself staring. She couldn't help it. Even dressed like a man who might fix your car for $20, there was something magnetic about him. Something that made you want to look twice. Then 3 times. Then forget you were supposed to be looking at anything else. His skin was a rich, dark brown. His jaw was strong, his lips full, his eyes, even from across the room. Sophia could see they were intense, piercing, like they could see straight through you. He was tall and built like he spent his mornings lifting things that would break lesser men. Not bulky like a bodybuilder, more like a man who did real work. Practical strength wrapped in flannel and denim. The hostess approached him with barely concealed disgust. "Can I help you?" The disdain in her voice was obvious. Sophia felt it from across the room. "I'm meeting someone. Name's Bryant." The hostess's eyes widened slightly. She clearly expected Bryant to be, well, not this. "Right this way, sir." She led him to Nellie's table, and Sophia watched as her friend's face went through several emotions in rapid succession. Confusion, disappointment, disgust, and finally, barely concealed fury. This was not the rich man Nellie had been expecting. This was going to be interesting. Now listen, I need you all to pay attention to what happens next because this scene right here, it tells you everything you need to know about who these people really are. The hostess led him to Nellie's table, and Ryler felt his breath catch for just a moment. Damn, she was stunning. The kind of beautiful that demanded attention. Curves that her red dress struggled to contain. Skin that seemed to glow under the restaurant lights. Lips painted the perfect shade of red. For a split second, Ryler thought maybe, just maybe, this dating app gamble might actually pay off. Then she opened her mouth. "Bryant?" Her voice was several degrees colder than the Chicago wind outside. And just like that, the attraction began to die. Ryler settled into his chair across from Nellie, who was studying him like he was a stain on her brand new dress. "That's me." Ryler smiled, a genuine smile. "You must be Nellie. It's nice to finally meet you in person. You're even more beautiful than your pictures." Nellie didn't return the smile. "And you're different from your pictures." "Yeah, I don't photograph well." Ryler shrugged. "Never really got the hang of those filter things. I just kind of point the camera and hope for the best." Clearly, the waiter approached. "Good afternoon. Can I start you off with some drinks? Perhaps a bottle of wine? Our sommelier recommends—" "Just water for me," Ryler said. Not whatever's cheapest. The waiter's professional mask slipped slightly. We have imported still water from... That's fine. Nellie's eye twitched. She'd been expecting champagne. Dom Perignon. Maybe a casual mention of a vineyard he owned. Not a man who ordered the cheapest water. I'll have a glass of your best red, she said, emphasizing best. Excellent choice, ma'am. When the waiter left, Nellie leaned forward, her voice dropping to a sharp whisper. Let me get this straight. Nellie's voice had an edge now. Your profile said you own multiple businesses. Ryler shifted slightly. Well, I wouldn't say multiple. I help out with a few things here and there. Odd jobs, mostly. I might have oversold it a little. Nellie's eye twitched. And the travel? You said you've been all over the world. I've moved around a lot, yeah. Wouldn't call it luxury travel, though. More like going where the work is. Buses, hostels, like that kind of thing. So the private jets? The international business trips? I think you might have read that wrong. Ryler kept his face neutral. Or maybe I worded it badly. Writing isn't my strong suit. Nellie stared at him like he'd just confessed to a crime. Then explain. She gestured at his outfit with barely concealed disgust. This? Ryler looked down at himself. What? I like to be comfortable. You look like you came here straight from a construction site. Is that a problem? Nellie laughed, but there was no humor in it. Problem? I cleared my entire afternoon for this. I expected a businessman, an entrepreneur, someone who actually had their life together, not someone who oversold themselves online. I didn't mean to mislead. You know what? Forget it. She waved her hand dismissively. I should have known. But the good ones are never on dating apps anyway. Ryler said nothing, but inside, he was taking notes. The outfit test was working perfectly. She'd built a fantasy based on a profile. And the moment reality didn't match, she'd checked out completely. Not because he was unkind, not because they had no chemistry, but because he wasn't the meal ticket she'd been expecting. This was exactly what he'd suspected all along. 15 feet away, Sophia watched the disaster unfold. She couldn't hear their conversation, but she could read the body language. Nellie was leaning back, arms crossed. Classic defensive posture, dismissive, annoyed. The man, Bryant, seemed completely unbothered. He was leaning forward, engaged, trying to have a conversation with a woman who clearly wanted to be anywhere else. It made Sophia's chest tight. Not because she felt sorry for Nellie. Her friend was being rude and obvious about it. But because she felt sorry for him. He seemed nice, genuine, like someone who had shown up hoping for connection and was getting judgment instead. Sophia knew that feeling well. She watched as the waiter brought their drinks, watched as Nellie took one sip of her expensive wine and then checked her phone, watched as Bryant tried to make conversation while Nellie gave one-word answers. Then something happened that made Sophia's blood boil. A group of 4 men walked into the restaurant. Loud, flashy. They're wearing designer clothes and expensive watches. They were seated at the table next to Nellie and Bryant, and suddenly, Nellie's entire demeanor changed. She sat up straighter. Her smile returned. She started laughing at whatever Bryant was saying, laughing too loud, making sure the table of wealthy men noticed her. She was putting on a show. Not for Bryant. For them. Sophia shook her head in disgust. This was why she worried about Nellie. This constant chase, like this endless pursuit of the next rich man. It was exhausting just to watch. She was about to check her phone, her hour was almost up anyway, when Bryant stood. Excuse me, he said to Nellie. I need to use the restroom. He walked away from the table, and Sophia noticed something. His path took him right past her. Their eyes met. Just for a second. Just a flash of connection. But in that second, Sophia saw something in his eyes. Something that surprised her. Sadness. Disappointment. Like a man who had been hoping for something and been let down once again. He nodded politely as he passed. She nodded back. And then he was gone. Sophia should have left then. Her hour was almost up. Her cart was unattended. Her mother's medication wasn't going to pay for itself, but something kept her seated, a feeling she couldn't quite name. At Nellie's table, her friend had sprung into action. The moment Bryant left, she was out of her seat, smoothing her dress, adjusting her cleavage, and making her way toward the table of wealthy men. Sophia watched as Nellie introduced herself, watched as the men's eyes traveled exactly where Nellie wanted them to travel, watched as phone numbers were exchanged and plans were made. By the time Bryant returned from the restroom, Nellie was back in her seat, looking like the cat who'd caught the canary. "Hey," she said, suddenly warmer. "I was just thinking, you know what? I think I should go." Bryant pulled out his wallet. It was nice meeting you, Nellie." "Wait, you're leaving? We just got here." "I've got things to do." He put some bills on the table, enough to cover both their drinks. "Good luck with everything." And just like that, he walked away. Nellie's face went from confusion to relief to annoyance in about 3 seconds. "Whatever," she muttered, grabbing her purse. Then she walked right back to the table of wealthy men. Sophia had seen enough. She stood, pulled out a 20, almost everything she had, and left it on the table for her $16 water. Then she headed for the door. She told herself she was leaving because her hour was up, because she needed to get back to her cart, because her mother needed her. But that wasn't the whole truth. The truth was, she couldn't stop thinking about the look in that man's eyes. She stepped outside into the Chicago afternoon, and the sun was still shining on the river. The world kept moving like nothing had happened. And standing right outside the restaurant, staring at the oldest, rustiest bicycle Sophia had ever seen, was Bryant. He was fumbling with the chain. It had apparently come loose. "Need help?" The words came out before Sophia could stop them. He looked up. Those intense eyes found hers again. Up close, he was even more striking. Even in those worn clothes, there was something about him. A presence, a gravity. "The chain keeps slipping," he said. "Probably should have retired this thing 30 years ago, but it belonged to my great-grandfather. Sentimental value. My dad used to fix bikes." Sophia moved closer. "Mind if I take a look?" "You sure? Don't want to get your hands dirty." She looked down at her hands, still slightly stained from fish cake batter despite her best cleaning efforts. "Too late for that." He laughed. A real laugh, warm and genuine. And the sound of it did something to Sophia's chest. She crouched beside the bicycle, examining the chain. It was old, but fixable. She worked it back onto the gear, adjusted the tension, and gave it a test spin. "There. Should hold for now, but you'll want to get it properly serviced." "You know your way around bikes." "I know my way around broken things." She stood, wiping her hands on her jeans. "You kind of have to, growing up where I grew up. Things break. You fix them. I can't afford to replace everything." Bryant studied her, like he was seeing her for the first time. "I'm Ryler." He extended his hand. "I mean, Bryant. My friends call me Ryler." "Sophia." She shook his hand. His grip was firm but gentle. "Your date went well, I see." His expression flickered. "You saw that?" "I was inside, with my friend, the woman you were meeting." Understanding dawned on his face. "Ah, you're her backup." "Something like that." Sophia felt embarrassed. She was worried about meeting a stranger. I was supposed to make sure she was safe. "And instead, you watched her give me the cold shoulder for 30 minutes and then hit on another table of guys." Sophia winced. "You saw that?" "Kind of hard to miss." They stood in awkward silence for a moment. The Chicago wind blew off the river, carrying the smell of water and city and possibility. "For what it's worth," Sophia said quietly. "I'm sorry. That was rude of her. And you deserved better." Something shifted in his expression. Something that looked like hope. "Can I buy you a cup of coffee?" he asked. "To thank you for fixing my bike?" Sophia considered the offer. She had a cart to get back to, a mother to take care of, a life that didn't include having coffee with handsome strangers outside fancy restaurants. But something about this man made her want to say yes. Something about the way he'd handled Nellie's rudeness with grace. Something about the sadness in his eyes that matched the sadness in her own. Something about the fact that he was asking her for coffee. Her, in her work clothes with fish cake batter hands, when her gorgeous friend was still inside, available and willing. "I can't," she said. "I have to get back to work." Disappointment crossed his face, but then he nodded. "I understand. Work is important." He paused. "But maybe, if you're ever free, if you ever want that coffee?" "I sell fish cakes in Lincoln Square," she said. "Corner of Leland and Lincoln. Most days from 7 to 3. Why did she tell him that? Why did she want him to find her? Ryler smiled, and this time, the sadness in his eyes was mixed with something else. Something that looked like hope. "Fish cakes," he repeated. "I'll remember that." He climbed onto his rusty bicycle. Oz gave her one last look, a look that made Sophia's heart do something stupid, and pedaled away. Sophia watched him go. She told herself it didn't matter. He was just a stranger. They'd probably never see each other again. But as she made her way to the bus stop, she couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just happened. Something that was going to change everything. Now, before we move on, I need y'all to drop a comment. Who do you think is in the right here? Do you think Nellie was wrong for judging Bryant based on his clothes, or was she just being practical? And do you think Sophia should have agreed to that coffee? Let me know in the comments. Hit that subscribe button right now because things are about to get real. Sophia couldn't stop thinking about him. The bus rattled through the Chicago streets, carrying her back toward Lincoln Square, and every bump in the road should have reminded her of reality. Of her mother's medication. Of the cart she'd abandoned. Of the $16 water that had eaten into her already thin budget. But instead, all she could see were his eyes. Those intense gray eyes that held something she recognized. Something that looked a lot like loneliness. She shook her head. He's staring out the grimy window at the city passing by. "Get it together, Sophia," she muttered to herself. "He's just some guy. Some broke guy on a rusty bicycle who you'll probably never see again." But even as she said it, she knew she was lying. He wasn't just some guy. There had been something about him. Something that made her want to know more. Something that made her give him her location like a fool. Lincoln Square. Corner of Leland and Lincoln. Most days from 7 to 3. Why had she told him that? Why did she want him to find her? The bus lurched to her stop, and Sophia pushed the thoughts away. She had bigger problems than mysterious strangers with sad eyes. Her cart was waiting. Her mother was waiting. Real life was waiting. Handsome men on rusty bicycles didn't fit into real life. At least that's what she told herself. Across the city, in a mansion that could have housed 50 families comfortably, Ryler Rowland was having his own crisis. He sat in his home office, a sprawling room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, still wearing his worn flannel and scuffed boots. His disguise, his armor against gold diggers. But right now, it felt like a costume. A lie. Damon stood near the door, tablet in hand, waiting for instructions. But Ryler wasn't thinking about business. He wasn't thinking about the merger that needed his attention or the board meeting scheduled for tomorrow. He was thinking about fish cakes. "Not, sir?" Damon ventured carefully. "The quarterly reports?" She apologized for her friend. Damon blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Sophia." Ryler leaned back in his leather chair, staring at the ceiling. She apologized for Nellie's behavior. Like it was her fault. Like she owed me something. "The fish cake woman?" "Don't call her that." Damon's eyebrows rose. In all his years working for Ryler Rowland, he'd never heard that tone. Protective. Almost tender. "My apologies, sir. I'm Miss Sophia." Ryler was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was distant, thoughtful. Nellie was beautiful. Damon stayed silent, sensing there was more coming. "When I first saw her at that table, I thought maybe this time would be different. She had the kind of beauty that stops traffic, the kind that makes men do stupid things." Ryler paused. "For about 30 seconds, I let myself hope. And then? And then she opened her mouth." Ryler's jaw tightened. The way she looked at my clothes, like I was trash someone had dragged in, like I wasn't worth the air I was breathing because my boots were scuffed and my shirt had a hole in it. She judged you by appearance. They all do. Ryler stood, walking to the window. The Chicago skyline glittered before him. Buildings he owned pieces of, companies he'd built, wealth he'd accumulated. None of it mattered when you were lonely. But Sophia, he trailed off. You, sir? She fixed my bicycle with hands covered in fish batter. She apologized for someone else's behavior. She looked at me like I was a person, Damon. Not a wallet, not a problem, just a person. Damon set down his tablet. Sir, if I may speak freely? When have I ever stopped you? Miss Sophia sells fish cakes on a street corner. She comes from a completely different world. If you pursue this, there will be complications. The press, your family, the board. The board can go to hell. Sir, I've spent 5 years dating women who saw me as a business opportunity. Women who calculated my net worth before our appetizers arrived. Women who sent me PowerPoint presentations about why they'd make excellent wives. Ryler turned to face his assistant. I'm tired, Damon. I'm tired of being a walking ATM. I understand, but there was something about her, something real. And I need to know if it's genuine or if I'm just desperate enough to see kindness where there isn't any. Damon sighed. He'd known Ryler since they were roommates at Harvard Business School. Before the inheritance that made him a multimillionaire. He had turned those millions into billions, built an empire. He knew that look in his friend's eyes. This wasn't going away. So, what's the plan? Damon asked. Ryler smiled, a real smile, not the practiced one he used in boardrooms. I'm going to buy some fish cakes. 3 days passed. 3 days of Sophia convincing herself that she'd imagined the whole thing. That the man on the rusty bicycle was just a random encounter, a brief moment of connection that meant nothing in the grand scheme of life. 3 days of her mother's condition staying stable but not improving. 3 days of counting coins and coming up short. 3 days of giving away fish cakes to the homeless regulars who couldn't afford them, even though she couldn't afford to give them away. 3 days of looking up every time she heard a bicycle bell. It was never him, until it was. Thursday morning, 10:23 a.m. The mid-morning rush was in full swing. Office workers grabbing late breakfast, students from the nearby community college looking for cheap eats, regulars stopping by for their usual orders. Sophia was in her element, hands moving fast, greeting customers by name, flipping fish cakes with practiced precision. She didn't notice him at first. He stood at the edge of the small crowd, not pushing forward, not demanding attention, just waiting, watching. When she finally looked up between orders, their eyes met. And there he was. Different clothes, a faded denim jacket over a plain white t-shirt, jeans that had seen better days, the same scuffed work boots. His beard was still slightly unkempt, his baseball cap pulled low. But those eyes, those intense, the piercing eyes that had haunted her for 3 days, they were exactly the same. You came, she breathed, then caught herself. I mean, give me 1 second. Let me finish these orders and… Take your time. His voice was calm, unhurried. I'm not going anywhere. Something about the way he said it made her heart skip. She turned back to her customers, but she was hyper-aware of his presence now. The way he stepped aside to let others approach the cart. The way he waited patiently at the edge. Never complaining, never checking his watch. The way he watched her. Not in a creepy way. Not like some men watched women, like they were assessing merchandise. No, he watched her like he was trying to understand something. Like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. The rush lasted another 20 minutes. Throughout it all, he stayed. He even helped at one point. An elderly woman had ordered too much to carry, and before Sophia could offer assistance, Bryant was there. Taking the bags from her hands, walking her to a nearby bench, making sure she was settled before returning. The woman smiled at him like he'd hung the moon. Sophia pretended she didn't notice, but she noticed everything. When the rush finally slowed, she turned to him with a smile she couldn't quite suppress. You actually came. I told you I would. People say a lot of things they don't mean. I don't. The simplicity of his statement hit her somewhere deep. And there was no flirtation in it, no games, just truth. Well, she cleared her throat, suddenly flustered. You've been waiting forever. What can I get you? Whatever you recommend. Big spender. She grinned and turned to her griddle. While she worked, he leaned against a nearby lamppost, comfortable in the silence. You know all your customers like that? He asked after a while. Like what? By name, their usual orders, their life stories. Sophia shrugged, not looking up from her cooking. Most of them, the regulars anyway. Mr. Patterson, the man you helped earlier, he comes every Tuesday and Thursday. His wife just had hip surgery. Mrs. Chen from the dry cleaner trades me fish cakes for free alterations. The college kids are new, but I'm learning them. That's impressive. That's community. She glanced at him. These aren't just customers. They're neighbors, friends, family, some of them. That's how it works around here. Where I come from, not people don't know their neighbors' names. That's sad. Yeah. His voice was soft. It is. She finished preparing his order. Her specialty, fish cakes with her secret sauce, extra crispy edges, served with a side of pickled vegetables she made herself. She put extra care into the presentation, arranging everything just so. When she handed him the container, their fingers brushed. She pretended the contact didn't send electricity up her arm. As he reached into his pocket, she saw the worn leather of an old wallet, and she stopped him with a raised hand. On the house. Bryant froze. What? You heard me, on the house. Sophia, you're running a business. You need to make money. I can pay, and I can choose who I give free food to. She met his eyes firmly. Consider this my apology on my friend's behalf. The words hung in the air between them. Bryant stared at her like she'd just said something incomprehensible, like she was speaking a foreign language he'd never encountered. You're apologizing for Nellie? The way she treated you was wrong. Sophia's voice was quiet but steady. I was there. I saw everything. You showed up looking for connection, and she treated you like garbage because your clothes weren't expensive enough. That's not okay. You deserved better. So yes, I'm apologizing. And yes, the fish cakes are free. Bryant didn't move, didn't speak. For a long moment, but he just looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. It was intense, searching, like he was seeing something he'd never expected to find. Sophia, don't argue with me. I hate arguing. I wasn't going to argue. His voice was rough. I was going to say thank you. Oh, she felt heat rise to her cheeks. Well, you're welcome. He took the food, and for the first time since they'd met, she saw him truly smile. Not a polite smile, not a guarded smile. A real one, warm and genuine. That transformed his entire face. Lord, he was handsome when he smiled. These are incredible, he said after the first bite. Seriously, I've eaten at restaurants that charge $50 a plate, and this is better than all of them. Flattery won't get you more free food. It's not flattery, it's truth. There was that word again. Truth. He said it like it meant something. Like honesty was a rare commodity he valued above all else. If only she knew. He came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. By the fourth day, Sophia had stopped being surprised when she saw his rusty bicycle leaning against the lamppost near her cart. By the fifth day, she'd started looking for it. Don't you have somewhere else to be? A job, maybe? She meant it as a small joke, but instantly regretted it when his smile flickered, just slightly. About that. Sophia paused, reading his expression. You don't have to tell me anything you don't want to. No, He ran a hand over his beard, suddenly looking uncomfortable. I should be honest with you. I'm between opportunities right now. Have been for a while. Unemployed? Something like that. She waited for the shame that usually accompanied such admissions. The embarrassment, the excuses. But he just looked at her steadily, like he was waiting for her judgment. It never came. "That explains the bicycle," she said lightly. He let out a surprised laugh. "No, that bicycle is a family heirloom, I'll have you know. My great-grandfather bought it in 1952. And you've been riding it ever since? No wonder you're between opportunities. You probably can't get to job interviews on time." He laughed. "The chain keeps slipping. I noticed. You should get that fixed. I have a mechanic." His eyes sparkled. "She works at a fish cake cart in Lincoln Square." Sophia felt warmth spread through her chest. This was dangerous. She knew it was dangerous. She had no business developing feelings for a broke, unemployed man when she could barely keep her own life together. But there was something about him, something that made her want to throw caution to the wind. By day 10, a new pattern had emerged. Bryant would arrive early before the morning rush. He'd help her set up the cart, carrying the heavy propane tank that always made her back ache, arranging the condiment containers, setting up the folding table. She'd protested at first. "You're a customer, not an employee. You won't let me pay for food, so I'm paying in labor. That's not how economics works. It's how I work." And that was that. By day 12, she was teaching him to make fish cakes. It was a disaster. "No, no, no, you're pressing too hard. The texture will be all wrong. I'm barely touching it. Bryant, you have hands the size of baseball mitts. Your barely touching is my crushing into oblivion." He looked down at his hands. Large, but calloused, strong, and then at the misshapen lump of fish cake batter he'd produced. "This looks like a crime scene. It looks like modern art, very avant-garde." Sophia plucked the disaster from his hands and tossed it in the reject pile. "Don't worry, nobody gets it right the first time. You did. I've been doing this since I was 12. My grandmother taught me. She learned from her grandmother back in Mississippi. This recipe is 4 generations old. That's incredible. That's survival." Sophia started shaping a new fish cake, her hands moving with practiced ease. When you grow up without money, you learn skills. You learn to make something from nothing. You learn that food isn't just food. It's love. It's history. It's connection. Bryant watched her hands move. "My mother used to cook," he said quietly. "Before she got sick, she made the best cornbread you've ever tasted. Soft in the middle, crispy on the edges. Perfect every time. Used to? She passed 8 years ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. She lived well, loved hard, left me everything that actually matters." He paused. "Not money or things, values, principles, the belief that how you treat people matters more than what you have." Sophia looked at him differently then. This man, this struggling man with his rusty bicycle and worn clothes, had more depth than anyone she'd ever met, had more substance than the wealthy men Nellie chased, more character than the flashy guys who drove past her cart in expensive cars. She was falling for him, and that terrified her. On day 15, during a slow afternoon lull, Sophia finally asked the question that had been nagging at her. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything. You come here every day, morning to afternoon sometimes. You say you're unemployed, looking for opportunities." She hesitated. "Shouldn't you be out there hustling? I can't even afford to pay you for your help." Bryant was quiet for a moment. "I should be doing a lot of things," he finally said. "But honestly, this is the best part of my day. Watching me sweat over a fish cart? Being somewhere real." He met her eyes. "Being with someone who doesn't want anything from me except maybe my terrible fish cake making skills. I definitely don't want those." He laughed, and she laughed, and the question dissolved into easy conversation. But later, as she was packing up for the day, Sophia found herself replaying his words. Being somewhere real. What did that mean? Real as opposed to what? There was something about Bryant that didn't quite add up. The way he carried himself, with a confidence that seemed at odds with his circumstances. The occasional slip into vocabulary that seemed too polished for a man who rode a rusty bicycle. The way he seemed to know things about expensive restaurants and international travel. Small things, easy to dismiss individually, but they were adding up. Sophia shook her head. She was overthinking. Probably just her mother's voice in her head, warning her to be careful, to protect herself, to not fall for sweet words and sad eyes. Bryant was just a man. A good man, going through a hard time. Everyone had layers. Everyone had history. She'd let him reveal his when he was ready. Okay. Y'all, let me pause here for a second. Sophia's out here giving away food she cannot afford to give away, to a man who secretly has more money than some small countries. She's short on her mama's medication, struggling to make ends meet, and she's feeding a billionaire for free because she feels bad for him and about her friend's behavior. Does that make her generous or foolish? Drop a comment and let me know what you think. And make sure you hit that subscribe button because what Nellie discovers next is going to absolutely blow your mind. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. That evening, Sophia returned home to find her mother struggling. Loretta Dennings was sitting in her usual chair, leg elevated on a worn ottoman, but her face was pale. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool temperature. Her breathing was labored. "Mama?" Sophia dropped her bags and rushed to her side. "Oh, what happened?" "Nothing, baby. Just tired." "You're not just tired. You're sick. Did you take your medication?" Loretta's guilty silence was answer enough. "Mama, I'm trying to make them last longer. We're running low, and I know we can't afford more right now." "That's not your decision to make." Sophia's voice cracked. "I'll figure out the money. I always figure out the money. But you have to take your medication, Mama. Your blood sugar. The ulcer. You can't play with this." "Sophie." "No." Sophia knelt beside her mother, taking her weathered hands. "I can't lose you. Do you understand? I already lost Daddy. I can't lose you, too." Loretta's eyes glistened. "Baby girl, I'm not going anywhere." "Then act like it, please." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their circumstances pressing down on them both. Finally, Loretta spoke again, her voice softer. "You've been different lately." "Different how?" "Lighter. Happier. Humming love songs while you count your tips, smiling at your phone." Loretta studied her daughter's face. "You've mentioned some man all week, but only in bits and pieces. Who is he really? I want the whole story." Sophia felt heat rise to her cheeks. "He's just a friend, Mama." A friend who's got you glowing like you swallowed sunshine. Tell me." So Sophia did. She told her mother about the blind date gone wrong, about the woman who treated him like garbage because of his clothes, about the rusty bicycle and the sad eyes and the way he showed up 3 days later just because he said he would. She told her about his kindness, his humor, his depth, the way he looked at her like she was the most interesting person he'd ever met. She told her about being terrified of falling for someone when she could barely keep their lives together. "He's unemployed, Mama. Between opportunities, he says. I don't even know his full story, just that he's struggling like us. And here I am, feeding him for free when I can't even afford your medication." When she finished, Loretta was smiling. "What?" Sophia asked defensively. "Nothing, just, it's nice to see you living again, even if you're scared." "Mama, nothing can happen. He's broke. I'm broke. Between the two of us, we couldn't afford a happy meal. And even if we could, I don't have time for romance. I have bills. I have you to take care of. I have—" "Sophie." Loretta's voice was firm despite her weakness. "Life is short. I know that better than anyone. Don't spend so much time surviving that you forget to live." Sophia didn't respond. But that night, as she counted her earnings, $127, still short of the $180 she needed, she thought about what her mother had said, and she thought about Bryant, and she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was allowed to want something for herself. The next evening, and across the city, Nellie Vance was hunting. She'd put the Bryant disaster behind her, or so she thought. There were plenty of wealthy men in Chicago, and Nellie was determined to find one. That's how she ended up at the Morrison Gallery opening in River North. A friend of a friend had gotten her on the list. Free champagne, expensive art, and a room full of men in designer suits. Nellie's natural habitat. She moved through the crowd like a shark through water, assessing, calculating, and looking for the biggest fish. And then she saw him. Across the gallery, surrounded by a small cluster of people, stood the most striking man Nellie had ever seen. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with skin the rich color of espresso. His suit was clearly custom, fitting his broad shoulders and lean waist like it had been painted on. His beard was neatly groomed, lips full, eyes intense. Women flocked to him like moths to a flame. But more than his looks, it was his presence that commanded attention. The way people deferred to him, the way they laughed at his words and nodded at his opinions, the way the crowd parted when he moved. This was a man with power. This was a man with money. This was exactly what Nellie was looking for. She adjusted her dress, a slinky emerald number that showed every curve, and made her approach. But as she got closer, something nagged at the back of her mind. Something about his build, his height, the way he stood. And then he turned, and she saw his face fully. Nellie stopped dead. No, it couldn't be. That face, those eyes, that exact build. It was Bryant, the broke man from the dating app, the man with the rusty bicycle and worn clothes, the man she dismissed as worthless. But this man was wearing a suit that cost more than her car. This man was surrounded by society people who clearly knew and respected him. This man radiated wealth from every pore. Nellie's brain short-circuited. Before she could stop herself, she was moving toward him. "Bryant?" He turned and looked at her with absolutely no recognition. "I'm sorry?" His voice was polite but confused. "Have we met?" It's me, Nellie, from the restaurant last week, the blind date." He studied her face for a moment, then shook his head with a pleasant smile. "I think you have me confused with someone else. I'm Ryler Rowland." He extended his hand for a professional shake. Nellie took it automatically, her mind spinning. "Ryler Rowland?" she repeated. "That's right, and you are?" Before she could answer, a woman in an elegant black dress approached. "Mr. Rowland, the gallery director would love a word when you have a moment." "Of course. Tell Victoria I'll be right there." He turned back to Nellie with that same polite, distant smile. "It was nice to meet you, Miss..." Nellie Vance." "Miss Vance." He nodded. "Enjoy the exhibition." And then he was gone. Just walked away. Like she was nobody. Like she didn't exist. Nellie stood frozen in the middle of the gallery, champagne glass trembling in her hand. It was him. She knew it was him. The same face, the same build, the same eyes. Even his voice was the same, just more polished. But he'd looked right through her. She pulled out her phone with shaking fingers and typed, "Ryler Rowland." Google loaded. Images appeared, and Nellie's world collapsed. Ryler Rowland, CEO of Rowland Enterprises. A net worth, $3.2 billion. Owner of multiple properties across North America. Forbes 30 Under 30 alumnus. One of Chicago's most eligible bachelors. The pictures were limited. The man was notoriously private. But one shot from a charity gala 2 years ago showed him clearly. It was Bryant. It was definitely, undeniably Bryant. The broke man on the rusty bicycle was a billionaire. And Nellie had thrown him away like garbage. The rage hit first. Then the embarrassment. And then something else. Something calculating and cold. Because if Ryler Rowland was Bryant, that meant he'd been in disguise. Testing her. And she'd failed. But Sophia hadn't. Sophia, with her fish cake cart and her worn clothes and her broke, struggling life. Sophia had been kind to him. Sophia had been feeding him for free all week. Sophia had been spending time with a billionaire without even knowing it. And now, Nellie knew. The question was, what was she going to do with that information? And the next morning, Nellie showed up at Sophia's fish cake cart with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sophie." Sophia looked up from her griddle, surprised. Nellie rarely came to Lincoln Square. She called it too working class for her taste. "Nellie, what are you doing here? Can't I visit my best friend?" Nellie kissed her cheek, leaving a smear of lipstick. "I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. You saw me a few days ago, not when we went to that restaurant. That feels like forever when you're my closest girl." Sophia wasn't buying it. She knew Nellie too well. There was something calculated behind those bright eyes, something hungry. "What do you want, Nell?" "Nothing. I just—" Nellie's eyes slid to something behind Sophia, and her expression flickered. "Oh, you have company." Sophia turned. Bryant was approaching, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the cafe down the street. And he'd started doing that lately, bringing her caffeine since she was always too busy to get it herself. "Morning," he said, handing her a cup. "Got your usual." "Thank you." Sophia took the coffee, suddenly aware of how Nellie was watching them. "Bryant, you remember Nellie from the restaurant?" Bryant's expression didn't change. Not a flicker of attraction. Not a hint of the initial interest he'd felt when he first saw her at that restaurant. Just nothing. "Of course," he said politely. "How are you?" "I'm wonderful." Nellie stepped closer, touching his arm. "I've actually been meaning to apologize for that day. I was in such a terrible mood. Work stress, you know how it is, and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair." "No need to apologize." "But I want to." She squeezed his arm, leaning in slightly. "Let me make it up to you. Dinner? My treat?" Sophia watched this exchange with a sinking feeling in her chest. Of course. Of course Nellie would swoop in now. And now that she'd seen how kind Bryant was. Now that she'd realized what she'd thrown away. But to Sophia's surprise, Bryant stepped back. Just slightly. Just enough to dislodge Nellie's hand from his arm. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm good." "Come on." "Really, I'm good." His voice was firm. Final. He turned to Sophia with a warm smile. "You need help setting up the afternoon supplies?" "I already done, but thank you." "Then I'll just keep you company until the rush hits. If that's okay?" "That's more than okay," Sophia said softly. Nellie watched them. Watched the way Bryant positioned himself near Sophia, comfortable and familiar. Watched the way Sophia relaxed in his presence. Watched the way they moved around each other like 2 people who had already built something real. And the jealousy burned so hot she thought she might scream. But Nellie was smart. She didn't push. She didn't make a scene. She smiled brightly and said, "Well, I should get going. Sophie, we should hang out soon. All 3 of us, maybe? Like a proper friend group?" Sophia hesitated. "I don't know. Come on, it'll be fun. Bryant doesn't know anyone in the city, right?" Nellie smiled at him sweetly. "We should show him around. Be welcoming. I promise I'll be on my best behavior." "I don't want to intrude on your time," Bryant said carefully. "Nonsense. Any friend of Sophie's is a friend of mine." Nellie's smile sharpened almost imperceptibly. "How about dinner tomorrow? Somewhere casual. My treat." Sophia looked at Bryant. He looked back at her. Something passed between them, a silent question. Finally, Sophia sighed. "Fine, tomorrow, somewhere casual." "Perfect," Nellie clapped her hands. "I'll text you the details. See you then." She sashayed away, heels clicking on the sidewalk. When she was gone, Bryant turned to Sophia with raised eyebrows. "That was something. That was Nellie." Sophia sighed. "She's not usually this friendly. And something's going on." "You don't trust her?" "I've known her for 15 years. I love her like a sister." "But trust?" Sophia shook her head slowly. "Nellie looks out for Nellie. Always has, always will." Bryant absorbed this information silently. He'd have to be careful. The dinner was at a casual diner in Lincoln Park. Bryant's suggestion, maintaining his disguise. Burgers, milkshakes, red vinyl booths. The kind of place where a man in worn clothes wouldn't raise eyebrows. And Nellie showed up looking like she was headed to a nightclub. Tight dress, full makeup, heels that made her tower over Sophia. "This place is so cute," she said, sliding into the booth with a practiced smile. Very retro. Sophia ordered a burger. Bryant ordered the same. Nellie ordered a salad and picked at it like the lettuce had personally offended her. Throughout the meal, Nellie turned on the charm. She laughed at everything Bryant said. She touched his arm repeatedly. She leaned forward so he'd have a clear view of her cleavage. She asked leading questions designed to trip him up. So, Bryant, she said, emphasizing the name slightly, you mentioned you've traveled. Anywhere interesting? A few places. Europe, Asia, South America. How exciting. What did you do there? Business? Pleasure? Both. He didn't elaborate. You're so mysterious. Nellie leaned closer. I love mysterious men. There's always more beneath the surface. Bryant's expression remained neutral, but Sophia caught a flicker of something in his eyes. Discomfort, maybe. Or wariness. Nothing mysterious about me, he said evenly. Just private. There's a difference? A big one. Sophia watched this exchange with growing unease. Something was off about Nellie tonight. The way she looked at Bryant. It wasn't attraction. It was assessment. Calculation. Like she was testing him. And Bryant seemed to sense it too. His attention kept drifting to Sophia. The way she actually ate her food instead of pushing it around the plate. The way she laughed genuinely at his terrible jokes instead of performing. The way she kicked off her shoes under the table because heels are torture devices invented by men who hate women. She wasn't trying to impress him. She was just being herself. And he was more captivated by that than by anything Nellie was throwing at him. Excuse me, Sophia said suddenly. I need the restroom. She slid out of the booth before anyone could respond. In the bathroom, she stared at herself in the mirror. Worn blouse, simple makeup. Hair pulled back practically because she didn't have time for elaborate styles. Compared to Nellie's designer dress and perfect contour, she looked like the help. What are you doing? She whispered to her reflection. He's not yours. He was never going to be yours. Nellie was beautiful, confident, sophisticated, the kind of woman men fell over themselves for. And Sophia was sitting here in her second-best outfit, still smelling faintly of fish cake batter no matter how thoroughly she'd showered. What was she thinking? Even if Bryant was broke, he'd eventually recover. Find success. And when he did, he'd want someone like Nellie on his arm, not someone like Sophia. She splashed water on her face, careful not to smudge what little makeup she wore. She'd go back out there. She'd be supportive. She'd give them space to reconnect. It was the right thing to do. So why did it hurt so much? When she returned to the table, something had shifted. Nellie was leaning back now, arms crossed. Her smile had thinned. Bryant was looking at his phone, brow furrowed. Everything okay? Sophia asked. Before anyone could answer, her phone rang. The number was familiar. Mrs. Williams, her next-door neighbor. Sophia? The elderly woman's voice was panicked. It's your mama. She collapsed. I called 911. They're taking her to Norwegian American Hospital. The world stopped spinning. What? She just went down, honey. 1 minute she was fine, the next, I don't know what happened. They're loading her in the ambulance now. I'm coming. Sophia was already on her feet, hands shaking. Tell her I'm coming. She hung up, looked at Bryant, looked at Nellie. But Bryant was already standing. What happened? My mother. She collapsed. I'll get us there. His voice was calm but urgent. Come on. You don't have a car? I'll handle it. He grabbed her hand, warm, steady, anchoring, and pulled her toward the door. Wait, Nellie called after them. What about? But they were already gone. Outside, Bryant pulled out his phone and made a single call. Damon, Norwegian American Hospital, now. He hung up before Sophia could process what was happening. Who's Damon? She asked, but her voice sounded far away like she was underwater. A friend. He'll get us there fast. Less than 3 minutes later, a sleek black Cadillac Escalade pulled up to the curb. Sophia stared at it. This was not a cheap car. This was not a friend's car. This was a car that cost millions. The driver's door opened, and a man in a crisp suit stepped out. Tall, professional, clearly someone's employee. "Mr. Rowe," he started. "Not now." Bryant's voice was sharp, so cutting him off. He opened the back door for Sophia. "Get in." She got in. Her mind was too full of her mother to question what was happening. Too full of fear and panic and the terrible possibility that she might lose the only family she had left. Bryant slid in beside her, took her hand. "She's going to be okay," he said quietly. "We're going to get there, and she's going to be okay." Sophia nodded mutely. She didn't notice Nellie standing on the sidewalk, watching them drive away. She didn't notice the way Nellie's eyes narrowed at the expensive SUV, at the driver in the suit, at the way he'd almost called Bryant something else entirely. She didn't notice any of it. But Nellie noticed everything. Now y'all, that SUV just pulled up and Nellie saw everything. She heard that driver almost say his real name before Bryant cut him off. She knows something is very wrong with this picture. What do you think she's going to do? Is she going to tell Sophia the truth? Keep it to herself and try to steal Bryant for herself? Something even worse? Drop your predictions in the comments right now and hit that notification bell because final part is going to be absolutely insane. The hospital was chaos. Forms to fill out. Doctors to flag down. Questions Sophia couldn't answer because she didn't know what had happened, what her mother had eaten, when she'd last taken her medication. Through all of it, Bryant stayed by her side. He dealt with the paperwork she couldn't focus on. He flagged down nurses when Sophia was too distraught to speak. He found her water and made her drink it. He sat with her in the hard plastic chairs of the waiting room when there was nothing left to do but wait. Finally, a doctor approached. "Family of Loretta Dennings?" Sophia jumped to her feet. "That's me. I'm her daughter. Your mother is stable." The relief hit Sophia so hard her knees buckled. Bryant caught her, steadied her, kept her upright. "What happened?" she managed. Her blood sugar dropped dangerously low. Combined with the infection in her leg ulcer, her system was overwhelmed. She'll need to stay overnight for observation, but she should make a full recovery. "Can I see her?" "Of course. Room 412. She's asking for you." Sophia turned to Bryant. Thank you. I have to." "Go." He released her gently. "I'll be here when you get back." She nodded once, then hurried down the hall toward her mother's room. Loretta looked small in the hospital bed. Small and fragile in a way Sophia had never let herself see before. "Ake mama." "Sophie." Loretta's voice was weak but warm. "Stop looking at me like I'm dying. I just got a little dizzy." "A little dizzy?" Sophia sank into the chair beside the bed. "You collapsed, Mama. You scared me half to death." "I'm fine. Just forgot to eat breakfast is all." "And your medication? When's the last time you took it properly?" Loretta's guilty silence was answer enough. "Mama, I know. But those pills cost money, Sophie. Money we don't have. I figured if I just stretched them out a little." "I told you we'll find the money. We always find the money." "By working yourself to death? By giving away free food to every kind face that wanders by your cart?" Sophia stiffened. "That man out there in the hallway," Loretta continued, her eyes sharp despite her exhaustion. "Is that your Bryant? How did you—" "Baby, I'm sick. I'm not stupid. The way he was hovering when they brought me in, the way he looked at you." Loretta's lips curved into a weak smile. "That man cares about you. Really cares. Mama, this isn't the time. It's always the time to recognize a good man." Loretta reached for her daughter's hand. "But something's not right with him." Sophia's heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. My intuition, perhaps. He acts like he's hiding something. Something about him doesn't add up. You need to be careful." Sophia didn't respond. Because the truth was, so her mother was right. She thought now about the driver that had spoken to Bryant so reverently. That had arrived with a luxury car and how Bryant freely sat in the back like he did it all the time. Something didn't add up. and Sophia was starting to wonder if she'd been foolish to ignore the signs. When she returned to the waiting room, Bryant was exactly where she'd left him, sitting in those uncomfortable plastic chairs, still in his worn clothes, Ike looking completely out of place and completely unbothered by it. He stood when he saw her. "How is she?" "Stable. She needs to stay overnight, but she'll be okay." "Good." The relief in his voice was genuine. "That's good." They stood in silence for a moment. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Someone's TV played softly from a nearby room. "Thank you," Sophia said quietly, "for getting me here so fast, for staying." "Of course." She hesitated. Ott then asked the question she'd been avoiding. "That car, the driver." Bryant went very still. "He almost called you something, before you cut him off." Sophia met his eyes. "Who are you really, Bryant? Because the man I've been spending time with rides a rusty bicycle and can't afford fish cakes. But the man who made that car appear with one phone call? That's someone else entirely." For a long moment, Bryant didn't speak. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. And finally he said, "Sophia, I need to tell you something." Her phone rang. The sound shattered the moment. Sophia glanced at the screen. "Nellie." "You should probably take that," Bryant said, even though everything in his expression said he wanted her to ignore it. Sophia hesitated, then sighed and stepped away to answer. "Hello? Sophie, where are you? Are you still with Bryant?" "I'm at the hospital. My mom collapsed." "Listen to me very carefully." Nellie's voice was sharp, almost gleeful. "That man you've been giving free food to? That man you've been treating like some charity case? That man who showed up to our date on a rusty bicycle wearing clothes from Goodwill?" "Nellie, what are you talking about? His name isn't Bryant, it's Ryler Rowland. He's worth $3 billion, and he's been lying to you this whole time." Sophia's world tilted. "You're lying." "Am I? Google him, right now, and then ask yourself why a billionaire would pretend to be broke." Nellie's voice turned cold, almost vicious. "What's he really after, Sophie? What does a man like that want from a girl like you?" Sophia's hands trembled as she looked through the hospital window. Bryant, Ryler, whoever he was, stood in the waiting room, still in his worn flannel and old jeans. But now she saw differently. The confidence in his posture, the way the SUV driver had deferred to him, and the expensive car that had appeared in minutes, the way he'd been cut off before he could be called something else. "Mr. Rowe?" "Mr. Rowland." "You're lying," she whispered again, but her voice had no conviction. "Google him." Sophia's fingers shook as she opened her phone browser. She typed, "Ryler Rowland." The results loaded. Images, articles, Forbes profiles, CEO of Rowland Enterprises, net worth $3.2 billion, one of Chicago's most eligible bachelors. And there, in a photo from a charity gala 2 years ago, was the face of the man she knew as Bryant. Clean-shaven, perfectly groomed, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her entire cart, but unmistakably him. Sophia's phone slipped from her fingers. Through the window, she watched Bryant, Ryler, the billionaire who had been lying to her for 2 weeks, turn toward her. Their eyes met, and he knew. He knew she knew. Sophia couldn't move. Her phone lay on the hospital floor where she'd dropped it, screen still glowing with Ryler Rowland's face staring up at her. The same face she'd been feeding fish cakes to for 2 weeks. The same face she'd been falling for. The same face that had been lying to her every single day. Through the window, she watched him stand, watched him take a step toward the door, watched his mouth form her name, and something inside her snapped. She picked up her phone, shoved it in her pocket, and pushed through the hospital doors before he could reach her. "Sophia, don't." The word came out sharp, sharper than she'd intended. But she couldn't soften it, couldn't take it back, couldn't pretend that her entire world hadn't just shattered into a million pieces. "Please, let me explain." "Explain what?" She spun to face him, and the hurt in her voice surprised even her. Explain why you've been lying to me for 2 weeks? Explain why a billionaire would pretend to be broke? Explain why you let me—" Her voice cracked. She couldn't finish the sentence, because the truth was too humiliating to say out loud. She'd been giving free food to a man worth $3 billion. She'd been worrying about whether he was eating enough, sleeping enough, surviving. She'd been falling for a man who didn't exist. Bryant wasn't real. He'd never been real. Sophia. Ryler's voice was quiet now, careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But please, just give me 5 minutes. Let me explain. Why should I? Because what I feel for you is real. She laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. Real? Nothing about you is real. Your name isn't real. Your clothes aren't real. Your whole struggling artist on a bicycle act, none of it was real. Tears pricked at her eyes and she blinked them back furiously. I told you things, personal things, about my father, my mother, my life. And the whole time, you were what? Taking notes? Running some kind of experiment? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Please, enlighten me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a rich man playing dress-up with poor people for entertainment. Ryler flinched. Good. She wanted him to flinch. She wanted him to feel even a fraction of the humiliation burning through her. I was testing you, he said quietly. Sophia stared at him. Excuse me? Not you specifically. Everyone. And anyone. He ran a hand over his face, suddenly looking exhausted. Do you know what it's like to be worth billions? Do you know what people see when they look at me? A walking ATM? Exactly. His laugh was hollow. Every woman I've dated in the last 5 years has Googled my net worth before our first date ended. They've calculated alimony before we've even kissed. One woman sent me a PowerPoint presentation on why she'd make an excellent wife, complete with projected earnings from my company growth and estimated inheritance timelines. Despite her anger, Sophia felt a flicker of something. Not sympathy. Not yet. But understanding, maybe. She calculated when my grandmother would die, Ryler continued. She had a pie chart. That's disturbing. That's my life. He met her eyes. I created Bryant because I wanted to know, just once, what it felt like to meet someone who saw me. Not my money, not my company, not what I could give them. Just me. Sophia was quiet for a long moment. The hospital corridor stretched around them, fluorescent lights humming, distant sounds of machines and footsteps echoing off the walls. Somewhere, a baby was crying. Somewhere else, someone was laughing. Life went on, even when yours fell apart. So, I was what? Sophia finally asked. A test subject? At first. He didn't look away from her eyes. At first, you were just someone who was kind to a stranger. Someone who fixed my bicycle with fish batter hands and apologized for her friend's behavior. Someone who looked at a man in worn clothes and saw a person worth talking to. And then? And then you became everything. The words hung between them. Sophia wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so badly it ached. But trust, once broken, wasn't easily repaired. You lied to me, she said quietly. Every day for 2 weeks. Every time you showed up at my cart, every time you let me give you free food, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended to be something you're not, you were lying. I know. I can't afford to give away free food. I can barely afford my mother's medication. But I gave it to you anyway because I thought you needed it. Because I thought you were struggling like me. Because I thought we were the same. We are the same. We are nothing alike. Her voice was cold now, controlled. You have a mansion. I have a fish cart. You have billions. I have bills. You have options, choices, freedom. I have... She stopped. What did she have? A sick mother, a struggling business, a heart that kept falling for the wrong people. You have me. Ryler said softly. If you want me. Sophia shook her head slowly. I don't even know who you are. Then let me show you. How? More lies? More disguises? Maybe next time you can pretend to be a janitor or a bus driver. See how the other half lives. That's not fair. Neither is this. Her voice broke again, and she hated herself for it. I need to get back to my mother. She needs me. She turned to go. Sophia, wait. Don't follow me. She didn't look back. Don't come to my cart. Don't send your fancy SUV or your assistant or whatever else billionaires use to fix their mistakes. Just leave me alone. She walked away. And this time, Ryler didn't follow. Y'all, I need you to pause with me for a second here. Sophia just found out the man she's been falling for is worth billions and has been lying to her face every single day. She's hurt. She's humiliated. And she just told him to leave her alone. But here's my question. Do you think she's being too harsh? Or is her anger completely justified? Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts. 3 days passed. 3 days of Sophia going through the motions. Wake up, check on mama, go to the cart, sell fish cakes, come home, count money, sleep, repeat. She didn't hear from Bryant, Ryler, whatever his name was. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits to her cart. Part of her was relieved. The other part, the stupid, traitorous part, missed him, missed his laugh, and missed his terrible fish cake making attempts, missed the way he looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the world. But he wasn't real, she reminded herself. None of it was real. Loretta was home now, recovering slowly. The hospital bill had been steep, $2,400 for one overnight stay, tests, and medication adjustments, and Sophia had no idea how she was going to pay it. She'd figure it out. She always figured it out. Somehow. On the 4th day, Nellie showed up at her cart. Sophie. She breezed up with a bright smile, coffee in hand, designer sunglasses perched on her head. How are you? How's your mom? Fine. Sophia didn't look up from her griddle. She's home now. That's wonderful. I've been so worried about you. Nellie leaned against the cart, examining her nails. So, have you talked to Bryant? Or should I say, Ryler? Sophia's jaw tightened. How did you know? Know what? That Bryant was Ryler Rowland. How did you find out? Nellie's smile flickered. Just for a second. But Sophia caught it. I saw him at a gallery opening, all dressed up, surrounded by fancy people. I recognized him immediately, of course. Same face, same build, just cleaner presentation. Nellie laughed. Can you believe it? A billionaire pretending to be broke? What kind of sick game is that? So you knew. Sophia finally looked at her friend. You knew he was rich and you didn't tell me. Not until what? Not until you saw him choose me over you. The words landed like a slap. Nellie's smile vanished completely. Excuse me? At the diner. You threw yourself at him all night, touching his arm, laughing at everything he said, showing off your cleavage. And he wasn't interested, not even a little bit. Sophia's voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. So you decided to blow everything up instead. That's not... You didn't call me that night because you cared about me knowing the truth. You called me because you were angry, because a billionaire looked right through you and chose the fish cake girl instead. Nellie's face contorted with something ugly, something that had always been there, just hidden beneath layers of friendship and history. You think he chose you? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sophie, sweetie, you were an experiment, a test. Do you really think a man like Ryler Rowland, a man who could have any woman in Chicago, would actually want someone like you? Someone like me? Look at you. Nellie gestured at Sophia's simple clothes, her practical ponytail, her work-worn hands. You sell fish cakes on a street corner. You can't afford your mother's medication. You wear the same 3 outfits on rotation. What could you possibly offer a billionaire? Kindness, apparently, on something you've never understood. Nellie's eyes flashed. Don't you dare. You've been my friend for 15 years, Nellie. 15 years. And in all that time, I've watched you chase money like it's the only thing that matters. I've watched you use men and discard them. I've watched you look down on everyone who doesn't have what you want. I was trying to survive. No, you were trying to win. Sophia shook her head slowly. And the worst part? When you finally found a good man, a man who was kind and thoughtful and actually interested in you, you threw him away because his clothes weren't expensive enough. You didn't even give him a chance. He was dressed like a homeless person. He was dressed like a regular person. There's a difference, but you couldn't see it because all you saw was what he didn't have. Sophia turned back to her griddle. I think you should go, Nellie. Sophie, we're done. The words were quiet, but final. Nellie stood frozen for a moment, shock and anger warring on her face. Then her expression hardened into something cold. You'll regret this, she said. When that billionaire gets bored of his little social experiment and moves on to someone more suitable, you'll regret throwing away our friendship for a man who was never yours to begin with. Sophia didn't respond. She just kept flipping fish cakes. After a long moment, Nellie stalked away, heels clicking furiously on the sidewalk. And Sophia let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. That night, Sophia sat with her mother, helping her change her bandages. You've been quiet, Loretta observed. More than usual. Just tired, Mama. Mm-hmm. Loretta's eyes were knowing. This got anything to do with that young man? The one from the hospital? Sophia's hands stilled. You found out, didn't you? Loretta continued gently. About who he really is? How did you… Baby, I'm old, not stupid. I've been doing some research of my own. Loretta gestured to her phone on the bedside table. Ryler Rowland, CEO, billionaire, philanthropist, built his company from the ground up after his parents passed. Donates millions to childhood education programs. Never been married. Notoriously private. Sophia stared at her mother. You Googled him? I Googled everything. Loretta smiled slightly. Also found out he paid my hospital bill, the whole thing, anonymously. But the nurse let it slip when I asked how we were supposed to pay. Sophia felt the floor shift beneath her. He… What? $2,400, paid in full. Plus, he apparently made some kind of donation to the hospital's diabetes care program. In my name. Loretta's voice softened. A man who does that after a woman tells him to leave her alone. That's not a man playing games, Sophie. He lied to me, Mama. He did, and that was wrong. Loretta reached for her daughter's hand. But baby, think about why he lied. Think about what he was trying to find. And ask yourself, if you'd been hurt the way he'd been hurt, if everyone you met only saw your money, wouldn't you want to test people too? It's not the same. It's exactly the same. We all protect ourselves the best way we know how. His way was pretending to be broke. Your way is pushing people away before they can disappoint you. Sophia had no response to that, because her mother was right. What should I do? Eh, Mama? That's not for me to decide. Loretta squeezed her hand. But I'll tell you this. Good men are rare. Men who see you when you have nothing to offer. Men who stay with you through emergencies. Men who pay your bills without asking for credit. Those men are worth a second chance. Sophia sat with those words long after her mother fell asleep. The next morning, Sophia arrived at her cart to find someone waiting for her. Not Ryler. Damon. The assistant she'd seen driving the SUV stood primly beside a sleek black car, looking distinctly out of place among the modest shops and working-class bustle of Lincoln Square. Miss Dennings? He nodded politely. I hope I'm not intruding. That depends on why you're here. I have a message from Mr. Rowland. Damon pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. He asked me to deliver this personally. He said he respects your request for space, but he needed you to know the truth. All of it. Sophia stared at the envelope. He also wanted me to assure you that he expects nothing in return. No response necessary. He simply felt you deserved to understand. Damon extended the envelope. After a long moment, Sophia took it. Thank you. Miss Dennings. Damon hesitated, then spoke again. I've known Ryler for 12 years. Through business school, through building the company, through every success and failure along the way. I've never seen him like this. Like what? In love. Damon met her eyes. Whatever you decide, I just wanted you to know, he's not playing a game. He never was. He returned to the car and drove away, leaving Sophia alone with the envelope in her hands. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she opened it. Sophia, I've written this letter 6 times and thrown away every version. Because how do you apologize for something like this? How do you explain decisions that seemed reasonable at the time but caused so much hurt? The truth is, I don't have a good excuse. I lied to you. I pretended to be someone I wasn't. I let you believe things about me that weren't true. And in doing so, I violated your trust in a way that words can't fix. But I want you to understand why. 3 years ago, I was engaged. Her name was Miranda. She was beautiful, intelligent, charming. Everything I thought I wanted. We dated for 18 months before I proposed. I thought she loved me. She didn't. She loved what I represented, the lifestyle, the access, the future she could build on my back. I found out 2 weeks before our wedding that she'd been having an affair the entire time, with a man who had potential but no money yet. I was her safety net. He was her passion. When I confronted her, she laughed. Actually laughed. And she said something I've never forgotten. Did you really think someone would love you for you? You're a wallet, Ryler. That's all you've ever been. After that, I couldn't trust anyone. Every woman who approached me, every smile, every compliment. I wondered what they wanted, what they were really after. I became paranoid, bitter, closed off. Then Damon suggested the disguise, the test, a way to meet someone who would see past the money and see me. I know it sounds manipulative. I know it sounds cruel. But Sophia, I was desperate. I was so desperate to find something real that I was willing to become someone else to find it. And then I found you. You fixed my bicycle with fish batter hands. You apologized for your friend's rudeness. You gave me free food when you couldn't afford to give it away because you thought I needed it more than you did. Do you understand how rare that is? Do you understand what that meant to me? In my entire life, no one has ever given me anything without expecting something in return. But you gave me everything, your kindness, your time, your trust, and expected nothing. I fell in love with you somewhere between the fish cakes and the terrible jokes. Somewhere between watching you be patient with difficult customers and seeing you give extra food to homeless regulars. Somewhere between learning your history and sharing mine. I fell in love with your strength, your resilience, your heart. I fell in love with the way you hum old R&B songs when you're cooking, the way you tuck your hair behind your ear when you're thinking, the way you look at the world like it's hard but still worth fighting for. I fell in love with you, Sophia. Not a version of you, not an idea of you, you. And I understand if you can't forgive me. I understand if the lies are too much. I understand if you never want to see me again. But I needed you to know that what we had, those weeks at your cart, those conversations, those moments, they were the realest thing I've ever experienced. You asked me once what I was doing, spending every day at your cart when I should be out looking for opportunities. I said being with you was the best part of my day. That was true. It was the truest thing I said the entire time I knew you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I'm just asking you to believe that my feelings for you were never a lie. Everything else was, but not that. Never that. Whatever you decide, I want you to know. Meeting you changed me. For the first time in years, I remembered what it felt like to hope, to want something beyond business success and financial security, to imagine a future with someone. Thank you for that. Thank you for reminding me that good people still exist. I've arranged for your mother's ongoing care, medication, doctor visits, whatever she needs. Before you get angry, please know this isn't charity. It's not pity. It's not me trying to buy your forgiveness. It's me taking care of someone who matters to someone who matters to me. You can reject it if you want. I'll understand. But please, let me do this one thing. Let me help the woman who raised the most extraordinary person I've ever met. I hope you find everything you're looking for, Sophia. I hope you find someone who deserves you, someone who's honest from the start, someone who earns your trust the right way. You deserve that. You deserve so much more than I gave you. Always. Ryler Sophia read the letter 3 times. By the end, she was crying. Not sad tears, not angry tears. Something else entirely. All right, y'all. We're getting close to the end now. Ryler just poured his heart out in that letter. Sophia is crying at her fish cake cart. And somewhere out there, Nellie is plotting something we all know isn't going to end well. Before we get to the finale, I need to know. Are you Team Ryler at this point? Do you think Sophia should forgive him? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button because the conclusion of this story is coming, and you do not want to miss it. Now let's see how this all ends. Sophia didn't go to Ryler immediately. She needed time to think, time to process, time to figure out what she actually wanted, not what her pride was telling her, not what her fear was whispering, but what her heart actually needed. She worked her cart. She cared for her mother. She lay awake at night staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every moment, every smile. Bryant, Ryler, whoever he was. The man who'd helped her set up her cart every morning. The man who'd been terrible at making fish cakes but tried anyway. The man who'd held her hand in the back of that SUV and told her everything would be okay. The man who'd paid her mother's hospital bills without saying a word. On the 7th day after receiving the letter, Sophia made a decision. She was going to find him. But someone else found her first. The morning started normally enough. Sophia was setting up her cart, so moving through the familiar routine. Propane tank, griddle, supplies, condiments. The early morning sun was just starting to warm the streets of Lincoln Square. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her. Well, well, well. Sophia spun around. Nellie stood there, but she didn't look like herself. Her designer clothes were wrinkled. Her makeup was smeared. Her eyes were wild with something that looked a lot like desperation. Nellie? What are you? I went to see him. Nellie's voice was sharp, almost manic. You're Billionaire. I went to his fancy mansion and I offered myself to him. Everything I have, everything I am. Sophia's blood went cold. You did what? I told him I made a mistake. That I was the one who recognized his value from the beginning. That you were just a phase, a curiosity, and that he needed someone who understood his world. Nellie laughed, but there was no humor in it. Do you know what he said? Sophia didn't answer. He said he wasn't interested. He said his heart belonged to someone else. He said, Nellie's voice cracked. He said he'd rather spend his life alone than spend a single moment with someone who couldn't see past his wallet. Nellie, he chose you. The words exploded out of her. A fish cake seller, a nobody. He chose you over me. This isn't about choosing. It's always about choosing. Nellie stepped closer, her face contorted with rage. My whole life, people have chosen other girls. Prettier girls, richer girls. Girls who had things I had to fight for. And I swore that I would become someone people chose. Someone who mattered. Someone who won. That's not how love works. Don't you dare lecture me about love. Nellie's eyes were burning now. You don't know anything. You sit there with your little cart and your sick mother and your pathetic life, and somehow, you end up with the billionaire. How is that fair? How is that possible? Maybe because I wasn't trying to win. Sophia's voice was quiet but steady. Maybe because I just saw a person, a man, someone who needed kindness, not calculation. Kindness. Nellie spat the word like it was poison. Kindness doesn't pay bills. Kindness doesn't get you out of poverty. Kindness is everything. Sophia cut her off. It's the only thing that actually matters. And you would know that if you'd ever tried it. Something snapped in Nellie's expression. You self-righteous little... She lunged. Sophia had about half a second to react as Nellie came at her, nails extended, face twisted with fury. But half a second was enough. Years of working the cart had made Sophia strong. Years of carrying propane tanks and heavy supplies, of standing on her feet for 8 hours straight, of surviving in a world that gave her nothing. All of it had built something inside her. Something Nellie wasn't expecting. When Nellie grabbed for her hair, Sophia caught her wrist. When Nellie tried to scratch her face, Sophia blocked and twisted. When Nellie threw herself forward with all her weight, Sophia planted her feet, shifted her center of gravity, and redirected. Nellie hit the ground hard. What the? She scrambled up and came at Sophia again. Harder, more desperate. Sophia caught her by both wrists this time, spun her around, and pinned her against the cart with her arm locked behind her back. Stop. Sophia's voice was calm, deadly calm. I don't want to hurt you, Nellie, but I will if I have to. Let go of me. Not until you calm down. I'll end you. No, you won't. Sophia tightened her grip slightly. You're going to take a breath. You're going to stop fighting. And then we're going to have a conversation like adults. A small crowd had gathered. Morning commuters, shop owners, regulars who knew Sophia. They watched in stunned silence as the fish cake girl held down a woman twice as elegantly dressed. Nellie struggled for another few seconds, then went limp. Are you done? A sob escaped Nellie's throat, then another. And suddenly she was crying. Really crying, the kind of broken weeping that came from somewhere deep and wounded. And Sophia released her carefully. Nellie slumped against the cart, mascara streaming down her face, designer dress dirty from the ground. I don't understand, she whispered. I did everything right. I played the game. I followed the rules. Why doesn't it ever work? Why do I always end up alone? Sophia was quiet for a moment. Then she crouched down beside her former friend. Because you were playing a game, she said gently. And love isn't a game. It isn't about winning or losing. It isn't about strategy or manipulation or being the prettiest or the most polished. Then what is it? It's about seeing someone, really seeing them. Not what they can give you, but who they are, their fears, their hopes, their scars. Sophia paused. Bryant, Ryler, he was testing people. He was trying to find someone who could see past the money to the man underneath. And Nellie, you couldn't. You never even tried. Nellie's crying intensified. I don't know how to be any other way, she sobbed. I don't know how to want things without trying to take them. I don't know how to love without calculating what I'll get in return. Then learn. Sophia stood up. It's not too late. You're not a bad person, Nellie. You're just a scared one. And scared people do ugly things sometimes. You should hate me. Maybe. Sophia looked down at the woman who'd been her friend for 15 years. The woman who'd just tried to attack her. And the woman who was now broken and weeping on a Chicago sidewalk. But hatred takes energy I don't have. And honestly, I feel sorry for you. Those words hit Nellie harder than any punch could have. I'm sorry, Nellie whispered. For everything, for the restaurant, for telling you about Ryler the way I did, for this. I know. Does that mean you forgive me? Sophia considered the question carefully. It means I'm not going to press charges. It means I hope you find help. Real help. Not the kind that teaches you how to love yourself before you try loving anyone else. She paused. But it doesn't mean we're friends anymore, Nellie. Some things can't go back to how they were. Nellie nodded slowly, tears still streaming. Fair enough. Go home, get cleaned up, and think about who you want to be, because the woman you've been, she's not happy, and she never will be. Nellie pulled herself to her feet, looked at Sophia one last time. He's lucky, she said quietly. Ryler. And he doesn't even know how lucky he is. He knows. Sophia smiled slightly. Trust me, he knows. Nellie walked away without another word, and Sophia turned back to her cart, where a crowd of stunned onlookers was still watching. Show's over, folks, she announced. Fish cakes will be ready in 10 minutes. The crowd dispersed slowly, murmuring among themselves. But Sophia barely noticed. Because there, at the edge of the gathering, stood Ryler Rowland. Not in disguise this time. No worn clothes, no scuffed boots, no rusty bicycle. He was wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, his beard trimmed, his hair freshly cut. He looked exactly like what he was, a billionaire CEO. But his eyes, those intense, dark eyes that had haunted her for weeks, were exactly the same. And they were looking at her like she was the only person in the world. "How long have you been standing there?" Sophia asked. "Long enough." Ryler's voice was rough. "Security got a call about a disturbance. I came as fast as I could." "Security?" "I've had people keeping an eye on you, discreetly, just in case." He held up a hand before she could protest. "I know that sounds controlling. I know you asked me to leave you alone. But after what happened with your mother, I was worried about you. I needed to know you were safe." "And the security team? They just watched while Nellie attacked me?" "They were about 10 seconds from intervening." But you." A smile tugged at his lips. "You handled it. I grew up rough. You learned to take care of yourself." "Clearly." He took a step closer. "You're incredible. You know that?" "I know I need to start my griddle or I'm going to lose the morning rush." "Sophia, I read your letter." He went still. And? And she took a deep breath. "I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. You lied to me, and that's not something I can just forget." His face fell slightly. I understand. But," she continued, "I also understand why you did it. And I know that the man who paid my mother's hospital bills, who's been watching over me from a distance, who wrote me a 6-page letter pouring his heart out, that man isn't playing games." Hope flickered in Ryler's eyes. "So, what does that mean?" "It means," Sophia smiled, "it means I think we should start over. Properly this time. No lies, no disguises, just you and me, figuring out if this thing between us is real." "It's real." His voice was fierce. "I promise you, Sophia, it's the realest thing I've ever felt." "Then prove it. Not with money, not with grand gestures. Prove it by showing up, by being honest, by letting me see the real you, all of you, even the parts you're afraid of." "I can do that. And I need to be clear about something." She met his eyes firmly. "I'm not interested in being a billionaire's girlfriend. I'm not interested in fancy parties or designer clothes or moving into some mansion. I have a life here, a business, a mother who needs me. If you want to be with me, you have to accept all of that. I don't want a billionaire's girlfriend either." Ryler stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "I want you, exactly as you are, fish cart and all. Even when I smell like fish cakes? Especially then." He grinned. "Doc, those fish cakes are incredible." Sophia laughed, a real laugh, warm and genuine, and she felt something shift in her chest. This was terrifying. This was insane. This was probably going to complicate her life in ways she couldn't even imagine. But for the first time in a long time, Sophia Dennings decided to stop surviving and start living. "So," she said, "are you just going to stand there looking pretty? Or are you going to help me set up this cart?" Ryler's smile could have lit up the entire city. "I thought you'd never ask." 6 months later, the fish cart was still there. Same corner, same location, same smell of hot oil and secret sauce wafting through Lincoln Square. But some things had changed. The cart itself was new, a gift from Ryler that Sophia had initially refused until he pointed out that the old one was a fire hazard. It was state-of-the-art, and with better equipment and more space, but it still had her grandmother's recipe painted on the side. Loretta's health had improved dramatically. With access to proper medication, regular doctor visits, and a home health aide 3 days a week, she was stronger than she'd been in years. She'd even started coming to the cart sometimes, sitting in a comfortable chair Ryler had provided, supervising her daughter's technique and flirting shamelessly with the regular customers. Sophia and Ryler had taken things slow. Dates that didn't involve fancy restaurants or expensive gifts, walks along the lake, movies at the old theater downtown. Dinners cooked together in Sophia's modest kitchen, where a billionaire learned that his fish cake skills hadn't improved much. They'd had fights, disagreements about money, about boundaries, about how much Ryler could help before it became overbearing. And they'd had to learn each other's languages, his world of business deals and board meetings, her world of community and survival. But they'd made it work, because underneath all the differences, they wanted the same thing, something real. On a Saturday morning, exactly 6 months after their reconciliation, Ryler showed up at the cart with a familiar look in his eyes. "What?" Sophia asked suspiciously. "You've got that face." "What face?" "The face that says you're about to do something dramatic." "I don't do dramatic." "You literally pretended to be a broke man for a month to find true love. You're the definition of dramatic." He laughed, and she felt it in her chest the way she always did. "Fair point." He reached into his jacket pocket. "I have something for you." "Ryler, we talked about this. No more expensive gifts. The cart was already too much." "It's not expensive." He pulled out a small velvet box. "Well, it is, but that's not the point." Sophia's heart stopped. "Ryler, before you say anything." He dropped to one knee right there on the sidewalk in front of the fish cart, in front of the gathering crowd of morning regulars. "Let me say this. You're proposing at my fish cart? Where else would I propose?" He grinned up at her. "This is where I fell in love with you. And this is where you showed me what kindness looks like. This is where I learned that the best things in life don't come with a price tag." Sophia felt tears prick at her eyes. "Sophia Dennings, you are the most stubborn, independent, frustrating woman I've ever met. You refused my money. You rejected my help. You made me work for every single moment of your trust. That's not really selling this." "Let me finish." His eyes softened. "You're also the kindest, strongest, most genuine person I know. You see people, really see them, when everyone else just sees circumstances. You gave me free food when you couldn't afford it. You fought off your best friend with your bare hands. You made a billionaire fall in love with fish cakes." The crowd laughed. Sophia blushed. He opened the box. Inside was a ring. Beautiful, but not ostentatious. A simple diamond on a delicate gold band. The kind of ring that wouldn't get in the way of flipping fish cakes. "Sophia Dennings, will you marry me?" The crowd held its breath. Sophia looked at the ring, looked at the man kneeling before her, looked at the fish cart where their story had begun, and she smiled. "On one condition." "Anything." "You have to learn to make fish cakes properly. I'm not marrying a man who can't handle a griddle." Ryler laughed, sliding the ring onto her finger. "Deal." Then he stood and kissed her, right there in front of everyone, and the crowd erupted into cheers. A customer dabbed at his eyes with a napkin. Loretta, watching from her comfortable chair, smiled like she'd known all along. And Sophia held on to the man she loved and thought about everything it had taken to get here. The blind date that went wrong, the rusty bicycle, the lies and the truth, and the painful road to forgiveness. All of it leading to this moment. This perfect, improbable, utterly real moment. 1 year later. The wedding was small, intimate, and nothing like what people expected from a billionaire CEO. They got married at sunset in a beautiful love garden. The guests were neighbors, friends, regular customers. Loretta sat in the front row, healthy and radiant, crying happy tears. Sophia wore a beautiful white dress Ryler had bought for her. Ryler wore a suit, but he'd taken off the jacket by the time they exchanged vows. Included in their reception menu was fish cakes for everyone. Made fresh by the bride herself, because she refused to let anyone else touch her grandmother's recipe. And when they danced their first dance, a slow song under string lights, surrounded by the community that had raised her, Sophia finally understood what her mother had been trying to tell her. Life was short. Love was rare. Good men were worth fighting for. And sometimes, the best things in life showed up disguised as something else entirely. Y'all, we made it to the end of this journey. If this story taught us anything, it's that true love isn't about what someone has. It's about who they are. And most importantly, never judge a book by its cover. You never know when that broke man on the rusty bicycle might be your happily ever after. Thank you all for going on this journey with me. If you love this story, smash that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment letting me know what you thought. Was Nellie redeemable? Would you have given a broke man free fish cakes? I'll see you in the next story. Until then, keep believing in love, keep being kind, and never stop reading. Peace.